divine ones. I'm Jerome Braggs of JeromeBraggs.com, and in this week, I want to talk to you about a phenomena uh, that is the root cause, one of the root causes for why we develop behaviors that actually cause us to become sick, that actually cause us to manifest disease. I get asked a lot, like, why would we elicit behaviors or why would we live lifestyles that actually drain us of the energy of our soul and cause us to manifest disease? And one of the real reasons why we do that is because, in some way, the behaviors and the lifestyle that we're living like that is being celebrated and is being rewarded, and we're being rewarded for it somehow. And this is why we continue it, because it's garnishing us some type of approval and some type of belonging. And those are kind of things that we desire as human beings. And I did a few videos in the past where I talked about how, as a healer, I can tell what actually was the cause of somebody's death by what they say about them at their funeral. And if you listen to when people read their eulogies or when people stand up and they, give a testimony about their relationship with the person and what they loved about the person, a lot of times what they actually say about the person are things that they're celebrating them for and what they, rewarded them for, but they were actually things that caused that person to be very disconnected from their soul. It would be things like, she would give you the shirt off her back. She never asked for anything. She never said an unkind word. She never, made waves. She was such a super nice person. She never said no. And it's like things like this they sound good because in our society we, celebrate those type of things. But when you look at them energetically, that person was highly unfulfilled. They consistently put their needs on the back burner, and they put other people's needs in the forefront. They did not have boundaries. They probably didn't speak up and say what they really felt, so they suppressed a lot of themselves. So these are the type of things that actually cause our energy to be drained from our bodies, and then therefore our bodies to manifest disease or illness, and that actually is what takes us out. So I wanted to give a little bit more detail in this video and give you 5 things that um, we celebrate in our society and we reward people for that actually make us sick. And the first one is people pleasing. So, people pleasing is where we are constantly saying yes. We don't say no. We're always showing up to help. We're always showing up to be of service. We're always showing up to care give. Um, but we're doing so at the expense of our own needs. We're doing so at the expense of our own desires. So our dreams and desires go unfulfilled while we're helping other people's dreams and desires be fulfilled. Our own needs for support and for help, our own needs for making money or whatever go neglected, while we're always showing up to help other people meet their needs, right? So people pleasing is this thing where we show up to be of service to other people at the detriment of our own selves. There are things that we need to be getting support and service for. There are dreams that we have that are unfulfilled. There are basic needs that we have that aren't getting met. But we don't get those fulfilled. We don't get those met, but we're always constantly showing up for other people. And on top of that, a lot of times we're doing so even when we don't want to do this, when we don't have the energy to do this, when we are tired or exhausted, but we're showing up again to show up and not saying no. And this makes us people, when we have a people pleasing pattern, we feel very unfulfilled. We often feel very exhausted. And a lot of times there's a lot of resentment because you're showing up for people all the time, but people aren't showing up for you in the same way. So you often feel resentment with that. So that drains you of your soul's energy. And again, when you have a lack of your soul's energy in your body cannot sustain wellness. It starts to break down. But we celebrate people pleasers. We call them really nice people. We call them good people, even. Uh, there's oftentimes we even see them as a holy person, a person who is selfless, right? We call them selfless people, and that's a very holy activity in society's eyes. But it's actually making us sick. It actually makes us sick. And so the second one is not expressing anger, right? And someone who doesn't um, speak up for their boundaries, someone who doesn't express where they're upset or they're frustrated with someone, someone who doesn't rock the boat, they're often seen as, again, a really sweet person, a really nice person, and you're very celebrated for that. Oh, you don't rock the boat. You never say a harsh word. You're looked at again and celebrated in society as being a really nice person. And was actually, and oftentimes, as a matter of fact, when you do not express anger, when you don't speak up, when you don't um, honor your boundaries, when that you're often, again, you're often violated when you're not speaking about anger. You're often, people will violate you and you don't speak up about it. Your boundaries are constantly crossed and you're suppressed. But a lot of times, this is often seen as being very spiritual, right? If you do this, this is a very spiritual person. So this is another thing, right? Where we're celebrating and we're um, rewarding people for what's actually making them sick. Because when you don't express your emotions, you are suppressing them, and suppression of emotions, of personality traits, of anything like that, actually causes us to suppress our immune system. The ability to speak up for yourself, the ability to say what's not okay with you, to say what you want instead, keeps one, your chakra system open so your soul's energy is flowing freely into the body. But when you can't do those things, right, you're closing the chakra system and you're suppressing your soul's energy from flowing, which causes the immune system to be suppressed and also causes blockages in your chakra system that actually manifest disease in the body. So again, this is something that people who aren't very angry, who don't express anger, they're sweet and they're kind all the times, we celebrate them in our culture. But actually, that behavior is an illness producing behavior. And there are a lot of diseases, and there's a lot of science now behind this. There have been a lot of studies around this where they found people who, a lot of diseases, especially autoimmune diseases, are highly correlated with people who do not express how they really feel, and especially do not express anger. So this is not just something, that I'm talking about from the spiritual side of things. There's a lot of science that is connected both with people pleasing and with not expressing anger to causing and being correlated with illness. The third thing that we celebrate in our society and reward people for is manning up, right? Particularly men, right? So the manning up pattern is when you, again, you don't express your emotions, particularly sadness or disappointment, but you man up, you suppress, you handle it, you just push through. You don't, or grief as well. That's another thing that's not really allowed for you to express or experience when in our society you're told to man up, right? You're not supposed to cry, you're not supposed to be sad, you're not supposed to feel anything basically. um, but you're supposed to suppress and push it down and press on and get things done and get the work done and go back to work and handle your responsibilities. And you're rewarded for that, right? A man who does not let those things affect him is looked at as kind of a pinnacle of what a man is, right? He's a standalone guy. He's a guy that just nothing phases him, nothing gets him down, right? But again, that man is in high suppression, and that is suppression only creates illness. Suppression does not create or manifest wellness or health in any form. So that man who was suppressing, his emotions is having high blood pressure and doesn't know where that's coming from. He's having heart troubles and doesn't know where that's coming from. All of a sudden he has a cancer and he doesn't know where that cancer has manifested from. That's where it's coming from, right? He lived a life of manning up, and that manning up behavior has caused him to be in suppression of his true self, and that suppression is causing disease. The fourth one is hustle and grind. This is really big, especially in the last probably 10 years in our society, where it's about hustle, 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 grind, 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 get your money up, do whatever it takes. succeed by any means necessary, and get to the money, right? Get to the money, get to the money, get to the money. Hustle, hustle, hustle. Don't sleep, don't rest. Always be striving, always be grinding. And people that are doing that, right, that are, what that looks like is, you're working 15 hours to 18 hours a day. You've got 17 different balls in the air at all times. You've got this project going, and this project going, and this project going, and this project going. You are juggling 3 and 4 different businesses. You've got all these things going, and you may be getting the money. You may be getting the money and maybe getting a lot of it. But what ends up happening a lot of time, and you're celebrated for this, right? People who are on their grind, as it's almost a rite of passage almost to ask somebody, how are you doing? Well, man, I'm on my grind. Man, I'm in the hustle. I'm good. I'm in the hustle. I'm on my grind, and that's looked at. If they respond that way, then okay, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, right? That's the reward. Somebody's like, oh yeah, you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Keep going, right? You're rewarded and you're celebrated for that. When actuality, and I've seen clients that are in this paradigm across the world, and I have never seen a person, I've never worked with a person who has had the hustle and grind mentality that is not deeply exhausted. They are deeply exhausted. They burn out their nervous systems, and they're not really enjoying their lives. They have all this money, but the way they're getting the money has burned them out, has stressed them out, and they are in chronic exhaustion, and they're not in joy. They don't feel any sense of fulfillment. They don't feel any sense of deep joy. They just have a lot of money. And a lot of times, again, this chronic stress that they put the body in from being consistently exhausted because they do not have a consistent or healthy relationship with rest when you're in hustle and grind. So they're in exhaustion and chronic stress. And that chronic stress and exhaustion drains again the body of your soul's energy. And that drain causes all types of health issues. It causes all types of chronic illnesses and all type of diseases. Again, there's many studies around how chronic stress breaks the body down and causes disease. But here's the thing that is literally causing us to live in a very stressed out way, and where we're not sleeping well, we're not resting, we're not enjoying ourselves. So we're oftentimes doing things that are very frustrated, but we're pushing through, and we're telling if but society is telling us, this is what you should do, and this is actually you're doing a great job, and keep doing that, and you're a good person for doing this, right? You're a good guy, a successful person, and as a matter of fact, you'll be shamed a lot in society today if you're not hustling, grinding, if you're not manning up, if you're not, suppressing your anger or people pleasing. So this is the thing, right? We reward and we celebrate these things, and we also seem to punish people if they're not that. So if you're expressing your anger, you're looked at as a bad person. If you're not manning up, you're looked at as a sissy or a weak or less of a man. If you're not people pleasing, then you're selfish, right? And if you're not hustling, grinding, then you're lazy. So this is how society begins to condition you into behaviors that disconnect you from your soul and thus make you sick. And the last one is shame, right? So we look at in society like we really don't like people that are really proud of themselves and that are really celebratory of themselves and that really accept and appreciate themselves, right? We feel that people should have some level of shame, that what you're not ashamed about your sexuality, what you're not ashamed about the weight of your body and how it looks, it's not thin. What you're not ashamed of, you're not making, 6 and 7 figures. You should be making that. What you're fine making, what you're making. It's like when you have moved through the world in a space of appreciation and acceptance, because that is not the way that society has deemed as norm, you get punished for that, right? You don't, and punishment is when I'm talking about punishment in this form, like you lose approval of some kind, and you lose some type of belonging. And so but what gets rewarded is when people are self deprecating, when they're very critical of themselves, when they are in a perfectionist mode, because that's also a part of shame when when you're a perfectionist, because you're trying to get cross all the T's and dot all the I's. Because if you don't, then you don't feel enough. You don't feel good about yourself unless you're perfect, and that's basically shame. So we celebrate perfectionists, right? We uplift them and we reward them. And if you're not striving to be a perfectionist, again, we call you lazy. We call you that you should have some shame. Why don't you try to get better? Why don't you try to be improving? So it's all of this, and this is kind of five of the behaviors. There are more, but these are five of the main behaviors that I see where society conditions us into adopting and eliciting as our lifestyle because society rewards us for eliciting them, it celebrates us for listening to them, and it oftentimes will punish us for not, right? And if you are experiencing a disease or illness now, one of the things you really have to do to begin to heal yourself and restore yourself to health and wellness is look at which of these five behaviors that you have and changing them, stopping them altogether, and no longer eliciting them, no longer behaving this way, and developing a different pattern, right? Instead of people pleasing, be self nourishing. Instead of suppressing your emotions, you be expressing of your emotions, especially anger. Instead of manning up, you allow yourself to be authentic. You allow yourself to feel how you feel and to take whatever time you need to process whatever you need to process. Instead of hustle and grinding, you relax and you trust the universe and you surrender more. Instead of shame, you develop a consistent behavior and outlook of self appreciation and self acceptance. These are the things in which we do to shift out of the behaviors that are making us sick and adopt behaviors that actually make us well, that fuel us of with the energy of our soul instead of deplete us with of the energy of our soul. And this is what healing and wellness actually take. But this is why I often say that society is not a good place to take your cues from for what wellness and health actually look like and what they take, because society is actually conditioning you into being sick. So I hope this video has helped you. If you know anyone who this video would help as well, please share that with them. As always, I love you. Now go love yourself.